Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kiev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
Better Odds Sports Betting is back. How's everyone doing? Kyle, you haven't been on in a little bit. You've been crazy busy. So excited to have you back on the show. And Shawn, wonderful having it. Me and you had a great time when we were in Vegas. Welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting, guys.
Howdy, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be back, and we got plenty to talk about. A big weekend, college football, a lot happening, some good games in the NFL. We can't forget college basketball, a lot going on. This is a busy time of the year, that's for sure.
Oh my God, it's so busy right now with basketball, hockey. You got NBA for any NBA cappers. Yeah, the conference championship games is going to be a fantastic subject that we talk about. We also have the big games that we talk about in the NFL. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you guys, and we'll start with you, Shawn. What do you think about the Cade McNamara transfer already to Iowa? I felt that happened pretty fast, didn't it?
Happened quick. He was able to get in because he's a grad right away before everybody else. And, I think a move from his point, kind of shows maybe Iowa's willing to shake some stuff up, because if I'm him, I'm not going to Iowa watching that offense this year. So maybe they're making some change with the offensive coordinator, with Brian Ferentz. And, he isn't going to have the same defense playing behind him on the other side of the ball next year either. They got 7 seniors on that side of the ball. So, but I think it's a good move for Iowa. I think the West is wide open next year, obviously. So it could be a move that puts them in the Big Ten championship game next year.
I think it's a good move for Iowa, but I'm not sure if it's a good move for him. I almost feel like going to Ferentz's scheme is career suicide. I mean, Cade McNamara, you're going from Harbaugh, so you have to understand some of your deficiencies are covered up just by the pure athletes and the great play calls and the great coaching of Jim Harbaugh. But now you lose your job kind of, and you can argue that you're just as good as, McCarthy and everything. But I almost thought he should have waited for maybe like a Purdue or something. If that quarterback job opens up, or a few others that might be popping up here with some guys going to the NFL, you can at least take a shot at something. So it almost feels like, what are you doing going to Iowa? Is there some NIL money we don't know about? Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'll tell you what, nothing excites me about somebody going to Iowa's offense. You got to hope that they're changing a lot of stuff there, because if they just run the same type of offense they had this year, it's like where you go to just get highly disappointed, and there's not going to be a good look for you. I hope that means that, he knows something about something's going to be changing, because otherwise I don't know why he would have made that move.
Yeah, it just makes little sense to me. But, as a Badger fan, I'm sure Shawn has the same thoughts and happiness as I do for the Luke Fickell hire. I mean, I remember the past couple of years, they were talking like he should have been the one to go to Notre Dame. He should have been the one to fill other programs. I know he said no to a lot of them, but I got to tell you, it's bittersweet in a way, because I was okay if Jim Leonard got the hire as long as they would have got a good offensive coordinator in there. But Luke Fickell's proven, and he is saying all the right things. Look at what he did with just kind of like 2-3 star type recruits here at Cincinnati. And he's turned a lot of them into NFL players. Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought 9 players from Cincinnati were drafted into the NFL. I mean, what are your thoughts on the hire yourself?
I mean, I think it's a really good hire. I think Fickell maybe decided that, he got about as high as he could at Cincinnati, right? I mean, how can you do any better than they did getting to the playoff? This year's team took a step back, but how could they not? They were still a pretty good team. I think that's a good hire for Wisconsin. I think Fickell can do a good job there. Probably improve their recruiting as well. I would be surprised if they don't recruit better with him. So I think that's a good hire, and Wisconsin will get back on track in time.
Shawn,
he's gotten to the level, in Cincinnati that the Badgers haven't reached yet, right? Certainly he's going to have more resources at Wisconsin than he did at Cincinnati. But for a guy to take, a mid-level program and get him into the college playoff, this is a home run hire for the Badgers. McIntosh is probably staking his reputation and his job on the line here with this hire, right? But, he knew what he had in the program. He knew it was there. He'd been around for a while, and he saw things that he didn't like. The program's going the wrong direction, and he wanted to make a switch. So I think it's a great move to bring some new blood into the Badger program, and I think he'll do well there.
Agreed, Shawn. It's I always was a fan of coaches once they kind of reach the playoffs. If the next year it doesn't happen, maybe it is time to go, because it's always like a "what have you done for me lately" type perspective. If you made it the playoffs and you don't get there the next year or two, you get blamed for it and they start turning on you. However, you go to a program that starts from nothing and you get them 6 wins and get to a bowl, you're praised for it. It's just the life cycle of coaching is so fan and media driven for "what have you done for me lately" in success, unless you're a guy like a Joe Paterno that has tons of early success and you can just sit there for a long time and be happy. Nick Saban, you can say Debo's, anybody, right? It's just a situation where it's much better for him, and it's great for a school like Wisconsin. I kind of said the same thing when Kelly went to LSU last year too. It was like, now you resurrected LSU. You're practically a hero for uh, going past season win total expectations. Is that fair, Kyle?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You go into a spot where Wisconsin had been down, and most people assumed that Leonard would get the job, and then they didn't play very well at the end of the season. Fickle comes in. I think it's a good spot where I don't think Wisconsin fans are going to assume that you're going to win immediately or win a lot immediately, but I think the team will improve immediately, and then long term the goals will be higher, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. The goals will be higher long term. Not looking for immediate success. I'm sure a few people will be transferring out, but hopefully we get some good guys transferring in. Let's get into this massive slate here of college football conference championship games. And I know basketball's rolling. Shawn, by the way, congrats. You had an amazing day yesterday at the Odds Breakers with your college basketball plays. Worked out wonderfully. I think you might have swept the board yesterday, but
not quite. I lost a late one, but almost.
Okay, you almost swept the board. So good job yesterday on your plays. But college basketball is great with Kyle and me, and we're going to be doing more stuff in college basketball in the coming soon. But right now, it's all about the conference championships for college football. We have a massive game tonight, Kyle. We have USC versus Utah. Finally, a game with some playoff implications, because I don't know if the TCU game, and we'll get into that one, has playoff implications, but this one really does. It's win to get in for USC. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this one?
Fantastic game. I'm already sitting here thinking, I know there's a huge slate of games in college basketball for tomorrow, and I'm going to be like handicapping games for tomorrow at the same time I'm watching this game, because I can't miss this game. Must see TV for sure. The first game between these two had a ton of fireworks. I mean, it was back and forth. USC had the lead most of the game. Utah comes back. USC needs a win here. I'm kind of done trying to guess when USC's turnover margin is going to flip around. I mean, how do you do this every single game? It's like plus 23 or something like that on turnovers. It's a football that bounces kind of oddly, and yet USC has been able to pick it up every time they fumble. I mean, it's been a strange thing for sure. USC is a really good team. This is not me saying USC is a bad team. I think some people overdo it, but you feel like at one point here, some point, it's probably going to change, and that'll be why they lose a game. I mean, because you just can't do that every single time. Now, will it happen here? Will it happen in playoffs? I don't know exactly when it'll happen. What I do think is Utah is not the same defense we've seen the last few years from Utah. Utah, we're used to seeing a great defensive line. We're used to seeing them dominate and get in the backfield a lot. Utah's defense is really not very good this year. USC put up 42 points and 8.1 yards per play in the loss at Salt Lake City. USC would have scored more if they didn't go 0 for 2 on fourth down in that game. So I'm very confident USC will score points in this game. Caleb Williams and that attack, I don't think Utah has an answer for them. Utah is 69th in the country in yards per play allowed. No way would I have expected them to be that low coming into the season. Now, Cam Rising's been pretty good. The thing that kind of stands out to me, though, is Cam Rising has lost them a couple games. Like, he can be really inconsistent. I'm sure you guys probably saw that Oregon game, too. I mean, they should have beaten Oregon. If it weren't for Cam Rising with 3 turnovers and a couple terrible throws on fourth and short, They had that game. And then obviously, how about the Florida game where they get right down in the red zone? He turns it over at the end of the game. I don't know that Cam Rising is a guy that I trust a lot. I think that he could be good. He could be really bad. I think Caleb Williams, we've seen him consistently be very good. So I lean USC. Now, you guys both know I'm an Ohio State fan, and Ohio State would certainly be cheering for Utah in this game. I like Utah as a team. I like Kyle Whittingham. They've been in this situation before, remember, and they've put up some really great performances. I mean, they thumped Oregon in the same spot. I think that this is the type of game I'd rather bet USC team total over, and that's the bet that I made here in this game, than I would try to take a side or bet the overall total, because you're playing on a fast track at Allegiant Stadium. I don't see how USC doesn't score quite a few points in this game.
Shawn, big game tonight, my man. You know, it's funny. I don't even know if I mentioned the spread. It is USC -2.5, -115 right now in a lot of books, and the total is a very high total of 67. So, Shawn, anything on this game?
Yeah, I was on the total on this one too, and I did take the full total at 66 yesterday. You know, looking at the way the defenses are shaking out, you know, you talked about the Utah defense. USC's defense hasn't exactly been ringing the bell either. You know, they're 91st in pass defense efficiency, and for me, you know, that says that they're giving up points to everybody across the board. You look at the game they played against Cal. Yeah, they were up big, but Cal's not an efficient passing offense either, and they were able to run up the ball up and down the field in the fourth quarter and almost win that football game against them. So if they don't get the turnovers, I think they're going to be right there with them till the end, and I think Utah's going to put up plenty of points too. The only thing that worries me a little bit about Utah's offense putting up points is they do allow a lot of tackles for loss. I think they're fifth nationally in sacks and tackles for loss per game. So they do let people get in the backfield a little bit. But overall, I think they're going to score as well. And I think this is going to be another shootout just like that first game. And unless there's a bunch of turnovers, swinging it one way or another, I think it's going to come down to the last possession again.
You know, it's so interesting. Turnovers is such a big part of this game and what people are saying. You know, I find that turnovers are not predictable in general, but except for like some of the outliers, you can almost expect some of the bad teams in the NFL to turn the ball over. And you can also kind of expect that the good teams won't be throwing those picks. I always used to say, you know, the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's, their teams are going to finish with a positive turnover margin. The big thing for me here is that looking at USC, they really outgained and outperformed Utah in.
Oh, looks like
now we've lost them completely.
Yeah, Kiev got booted there, so we'll just keep going and see if Kiev can pop back in. Shawn, I agree with you. I mean, I didn't mention USC's defense is bad. I mean, USC's defense really gave up a lot against Notre Dame. Notre Dame turned it over a couple times there. They could add quite a few more points. Here's Kiev back, so hopefully.
Yeah, my internet went out. I don't know which part it did. Everything froze up. I apologize for that. But I don't know. When I was talking about USC, my point is when it comes to the turnovers, they're a little bit predictable when it comes to the outliers. The bad teams like the Toledos might turn it over more, and the good teams that are well coached, like Nick Saban's and the Clemson's out there, and you know, obviously Lincoln Riley might have a positive turnover. This game in Utah, there was massive penalty discrepancy, 12-5, and if you watch that last drive for Utah, it was almost like when they're down by 7, they got pass interference all the way down the field to get that last score. You know, you can say there's a lot of interesting narratives here. The Pac-12 is mad at USC, so they're not going to let them win. Well, you know, I look at the other way. I kind of say the Pac-12 has this chance to get into the college football playoff, and you know, if they get USC in, it actually helps them, even though USC is leaving to the Big Ten. I don't know how the flags are going to go, and that's a very unpredictable thing, and I hate having to talk about it. But what I do know is that Utah on the road has not been nearly what they are at home. I think they are Jekyll and Hyde on the road. You saw them at UCLA on the road. You saw them at Washington on the road. You know, it's just you saw them at Oregon. You know, when Bo Nix was hurt, they only put up 17 points. I also wonder how Cameron Rising is. He's a little bit banged up, and if he doesn't have his legs, he can get in trouble. This Utah defense, like Kyle said, is not nearly as good as it used to be. I like USC, and I did bet Utah plus 250 before the season started to win the Pac-12 championship. Well, I actually am changing, and I'm putting more to cover that bet, as well as more to try to make a little bit of money on the side here on USC at minus 2.5. I like USC, guys.
Makes sense.
Let's move to the next game. Why don't we get right into the other big game that has some sort of playoff implications? I don't know what it would take for TCU to not make the playoffs, guys. I mean, what if they get blown out, Kyle? I mean, if USC wins and Kansas State wins by, let's just say, 17 or more points, is that enough to take them out? Is that what they're worried about, Kyle?
I don't want to get into who should actually be there because, you know, I know people are going to say you're a Buckeyes fan, you're a homer. I think you guys know well enough. I mean, I think you guys know well enough that I am fair about my Buckeyes support, and the Buckeyes have nobody to blame but themselves if they don't make it in because the way they played in the fourth quarter in that big game last week. But I think TCU would be pretty nervous if they get blown out in this game. I mean, you know, if you have big name teams sitting there in 5th and 6th like you do right now, you don't want to get blown out and give them an excuse to move up in Ohio State or in Alabama. You know, that's something that should scare you for sure. I think if this is a close game, TCU will make it regardless. I think if TCU gets blown out, they could be in trouble. Like I said, I don't know, you know, how it looks. TCU's played a good schedule, so they probably deserve to be there. TCU has played much better than USC overall. USC actually just has all the turnovers in their favor. As far as this game, I think Kansas State's a good team. You know, I think this is a tough test for TCU. Kansas State was up 28-10. We all remember that game over TCU on the road. Then Martinez got hurt, and then Howard was just lighting it up. And then Howard got hurt, and they brought in the third stringer who was a freshman, and he just looked like a deer in headlights, threw a pick right away. They couldn't run any normal plays. Then finally Howard came back in, and he wasn't 100%, but definitely hurt them to lose both of their quarterbacks in that game. I think that Howard has exceeded all expectations for him. I think the offensive coaching staff for Kansas State has done a great job. He has an average depth of target of 10 yards. Kansas State's 22nd in points per drive this year. Their offense is far better than I expected they would be. But Deuce Vaughn, he's a problem in the backfield, certainly. TCU's defense has been a bit better here of late, but I do think Kansas State's going to score points. So on the other side, TCU, I think they'll score plenty as well. This is one where the yards per play margin plus 1.06 net yards per play for TCU and plus 0.98 for Kansas State. I think the spread's about right here. To be honest, I lean Kansas State if I had to take a side here, but just would be wanting 3 and 2.5 is what I've seen across the board. So I don't think there's been a 3 pop. I don't really think there will be.
And we got a quick question, and we'll save this one, Arthur, for when we talk a little NFL in about 10-15 minutes here. It's a great question, though. Shawn, you know, I think God is with TCU some of the ways that they've been winning games this year. And it's not a good handicap when you start bringing out God. You should probably run the other direction.
Well, you got God in history, right? I mean, they're the first team since 1975 to rattle off 7 straight wins by 10 points or fewer. I mean, it doesn't happen. They're winning every single close game. The coin flips are going their way. So, yeah, maybe they're a team of destiny. But I think, you know, to Kyle's point, that's going to hurt them. You know, they don't have the brownie points. They don't have the style points in close games where they were able to run up the score. So if they do lose this game by 15 or 20 points, maybe somebody else does sneak in on the backside.
Yeah. You know, first of all, Akron up 9-0. Oh, I'm liking that. I threw a little beer money on the money line there. I thought, well, Akron is kind of excited to play this game against Buffalo. Let's see what happens. So go Akron, by the way. Take Buffalo out of the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, it's such an intriguing game. I got TCU minus 0.5, and it's so hard for me to power rate a team that has more losses that they should have had, a lot of coin flips, but at the same time, that's what coaching brings you. Guys like Sonny Dykes, he wins those situations because he's a good coach. The bad coaches lose them. You saw that with Scott Frost a billion times at Nebraska, and the good coaches win. So I don't trust Kansas State to not win this game or at the very end. You saw Baylor where Chapin should have threw the wide open tight end to get the first down and the game's over. And then all of a sudden he runs, freezes up for 8 yards. Right when they're punting, you knew TCU was going to win. Terrible clock management that game, too. I don't know what Dykes was thinking, having the field goal kicker to sprint out there. I'm guessing he only kicks from the right hash. So think about that, Kansas State. Maybe the kicker can only kick on the right hash. I think this total's a tick too high here at 61. I think this is just being such a big championship game. I might even look at a first half under here in this situation because, the end of the games could be very unpredictable. But maybe in the first half here, you might get yourself, 28, 8.5, 29. I'm just going to pull it up here to see what it says here in the first half. 29.5, that's not a terrible under to look for in this game. So my numbers are too close to the power rating here, and it's just such an interesting thing. As the college football fan of me wants TCU to win just because I want to see them represent in the playoffs. All right, next game. What was the next one, Shawn? Was it the Toledo one?
Boise and Fresno we were going to look at, I think.
Boise, Fresno, that's right. So Fresno State, I'll share my screen. -2.5 here for Boise. This thing has been going down and down and down. Oh, sorry, this is the first half still. It's 3.5 because that's what I saw before as well. -3, down to -3. 54.5 is the total. Shawn, why don't you get started on this one?
Yeah, so Mountain West, the first time these guys played, Fresno was without their starting quarterback, and they certainly struggled, especially through the air. They were able to run the ball a little bit on Boise State. But Boise's been dominant in conference play. They also struggle. If you look at both of these teams at the end of September, at the start of October, you wouldn't have thought either of these teams would be playing in the Mountain West Championship game. They both had, one had an injury, the other one had a quarterback issue. I think it was Bachmeier. Wasn't worth anything, and they changed their offensive coordinator at that point. And since then, Boise's going on a tear. They're 8-0 in conference play. They haven't gotten beat yet. And I think Jeff Tedford, after he got the quarterback back, has really made a difference in his offensive scheme as well. And they've been able to run the ball a little bit more effectively and get quite a few yards. So for me, I think this is a game, a lot of people are looking at the total right away. I think it opened at 51 or 50.5 at some books, and it went right up to 53.5, 54. I think it's sitting at 54.5 right now. There's some weather potential in there with some snow possible on Saturday night, but I don't think that plays any issue in the game at all. I'm looking at the total, and I'm looking at it going over here. I think both defenses struggle in that first matchup, and I think both defenses are going to struggle again, especially now that Fresno's got the quarterback back. So I'm looking for this one to get into the 30s with both teams fairly easily. And as long as that weather isn't, a big dump in the snow, they're talking about maybe an inch possible. I think they're going to score and score often in this one.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting game for sure in Boise, and it's like a home game for them. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this game?
So I think similar to Shawn here on this one, I'll tell you, go back and look at Boise and who they've been playing as far as quarterbacks here. Look at their schedule since they played Fresno State. So Fresno State had their backup in the first game, Fife. I got to tell you, the drop off from Jake Haener to him, it's just massive. I mean, it's about as big as you see from a first string to second string. And then you go play Air Force. Obviously, they don't really throw it. Colorado State, just a terrible passing team. Then BYU puts up 31 points on them. Jaron Hall, the only good quarterback they've played. Nevada, Wyoming with their backup quarterback who was 3 for 16 with 3 interceptions in that game. And then Wyoming still almost won, which is just crazy. And Utah State scores 23. Cooper Lagasse is a pretty decent quarterback. Just a horrible beat for Utah State, too, by the way. Insane. I think that Boise State's defense is good, but not as good as they look on paper. If you look at Fresno State, they have Haener, Mims, Cropper. They have some real weapons on offense. I think Fresno State can score here. Fresno State is 51% on third downs in the conference. And really, if you look at the data for the year, Fresno State, because Haener was out for so long, I think they're not really you're not getting an accurate picture of what their offense was. Now, you could say the same thing about Boise because you had Bachmeier at the beginning of the season when it was an absolute mess for Boise's offense. Taylon Green, a massive pickup there. The running game for Boise's been very good. I don't know what to do with the side. If this was still at 4.5 like it started, I would lean Fresno State here. 3, it's a pass for me. The only thing I could bet would be the over. Now, I hate that it's gone from 51 up to 54.5 or 55, but that's still my lean.
Yeah, what's interesting is I have a better number on this game. I have 4.5, and at 3, it's just a lean. 3.5, I would play it, but I gave this out a day ago on this weekly odds breaker show, and it was at 3.5. But I think the reason is what you nailed it, Kyle. You just completely nailed it and said the stats are different, and it's much different, I almost think, than even Boise when Bachmeier was playing. I mean, they got beat by UConn and some other pretty bad teams this year without Haener. And then you look at Haener, he comes back and they rip out 7 wins in a row, and pretty easy wins too. Now, my concern here is that Green is a running quarterback. Can Fresno contain him enough? I think so. I'm not 100% sure about that because the truth is there is not a ton of running quarterbacks in the Mountain West, and so you don't have a great sample size of them trying to stop that. So I'm a little concerned about that. I guess, Air Force would be, but they didn't play Air Force this year. So I still think that they could win this, but at the 3, it's just a lean now. If you can find a 3.5, I'm cool with. I think this is going to be a close game and a barn burner, Kyle.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah, I think the other one little other piece I think that plays into this is Mims only had 61 yards that first meeting on 21 carries, and they completely had to get away from the running game when they fell behind in the second half. If they're able to run the ball and spread the field out, Boise State's going to struggle even more because they were one-dimensional in that first game. Boise State stacked the box in the second half, and then even when they had to throw the ball, they were still having 7 guys down playing the run. So I think with them being able to run the ball, this, like we said, the total is going to go up, and I think Fresno's definitely a live dog in this one.
Yeah, when Boise lost to BYU, it kind of showed me that Green's still green. I mean, he's young, right? He's a freshman quarterback. So a freshman quarterback in the championship game is more of a fade look. So I definitely like what you're saying there. Kyle, got a question for you. Thoughts on the Utah USC total from Jacob W. It's funny. This total scares me. Why is it only 67, man? Why don't you give me your quick thoughts on that?
I think when it's a super big game, I mean, everything's on the line for USC. In general, you think that's good for unders because there's going to be plenty of motivation, and there's less motivation. Sometimes totals are higher. Having said that, I mean, I think both teams were plenty motivated in the first game. It was 43-42. I could only bet the over in that game. There's no way I would want to bet the under. USC games, we've seen them go nuts in the fourth quarter multiple times. And if USC gets ahead, they're going to give up touchdowns when they're ahead and it'll get closer. So I definitely lean strongly to the over. Like I said, I took USC team total over myself.
And Jacob, you might get a better number if you wait till the second half. They might start off a little bit tough, and then you take the second half over, the live over at that point, because as last game, a lot of scoring happened at the very end when they're in desperation mode. Teams going for it on fourth down many times really puts up a lot of points. So if this is a really low scoring first half, you might get a pretty good number on that second half over. So I might be putting some pizza money on that, guys. So I'm looking forward to this game. Going to be just a wonderful game to watch tonight. Big fan of USC, obviously, for my play. Let's move on to the NFL then. And we have a question from Artur Asayan. I think I might have botched his name, not sure. Hey, guys, great show. Thoughts on Cleveland heading into Houston for Watson's first game back to his former team. Thanks. Well, I tweeted out this earlier. I'll take this one first if that's okay, guys. Houston's a very hard team to gauge, to bet on now, because right now they're kind of done. I almost feel like Lovey probably can't pack it in. But at the same time, this is the Deshaun Watson comeback game, and there's two big things about it. I don't think the Texans really care about being Deshaun Watson, because most of these players, minus like Laramie Tunsil and maybe Cooks, didn't play with Deshaun. But I don't know if like how much ill will that they have against him. It was kind of the team that's been losing, that's needed him, that kind of, put him in this whole situation. But at the same time, you're looking at a home dog here for Houston and a guy that hasn't played in 2 years of football. And Deshaun did play a little in the preseason. He looked pretty bad. So that whole Jacoby Brissett, charisma, I guess that you'd say, coming in, or I guess his relationships that he had over the field, knowing where his player is going to be. I can't think of the right word. It might show bad for Deshaun Watson here. There's no way I could bet Cleveland here. I would lean pretty hard to the Texans, even though they're one of the worst teams. They do have Kelly now at the quarterback, so that might energize them just for this game coming back. So that's my thoughts. Any of you guys got something quick on his question?
For me, I don't know how you bet this game with very much money, at least. I mean, Cleveland, you got Watson, hasn't played in 2 years. Who knows how he's going to look? I'd rather wait and see. On the other side, I don't want to back the Texans. I mean, I don't see any reason to be excited to bet the Texans, but I'm not laying 7 points with Cleveland without seeing how Watson looks first. Like Kiev said, Watson didn't look good in the preseason. I don't know how he's going to look here. Sometimes Houston's played a little bit harder and had some good games at home. I hate to not say much here, but like I always say, I'd rather tell you the truth about what I think. I think this is an easy pass on this game. I don't want to bet this game.
It's a hard wait and see for me too. I mean, what team could you be better coming back into the fold though than the Houston Texans to get right? I mean, if you're going to come in, get a full game of warm up, they're 4-7, so they're not really playing for anything either, right? But to try and get your feet back under you, it's probably the best defense to go up against. So I'm wait and see, but yeah, I'm not laying a touchdown. No way.
Almost like the money line, like on Houston, would be better. I could see just lots of craziness happening in this game. It's like they win outright or get blown out. It's almost like, what situation is going to happen. Deshaun Watson, I just don't see how he could be really good this game. And I don't like either coach. So there you go. Let's move on to the game at the night game, I guess. We're going to look at the Colts, I believe, are playing the Dallas Cowboys. And this spread is -10.5 for the boys. I believe the look ahead was only -7. The total is 44.5, a pretty low total. My first inclination is this is a big spread for a low total, but I think there's reasons for it. Shawn, why don't you give us your thoughts on this one first?
Well, let's start looking at Dallas. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in the NFL, hands down. I think that defense is elite, the way they can pressure the quarterback. The big thing for me is, in the look at the last 5 games, they've dominated everybody they've played except for the Packers, which was a get-up game for the Packers against Mike McCarthy, their old coach, right, for Aaron Rodgers. And how did the Packers win that game? They ran the ball. If the Colts were able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit in the first half, this game close, I could certainly see them covering. But for me, I don't see how the Colts get over 17 points in this game. And I certainly think Dallas has the ability to put up, 24, 27 points easy. So if the Colts control the line of scrimmage, they're going to hang around. If they can't run the ball, this is going to be a blowout, just like the Vikings game was for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think so too. This low total tells me it could be a blowout almost. It's like, why? If there's any like head scratching going on, it's like, well, NFL laying double-digit points. A lot of teams just want to get out. The game goes a lot faster than college if you're rushing the ball. But, this is just such a bad spot. And where the Cowboys thrive in the trenches is kind of where the matchup is, or the big mismatch is, because the Colts have a terrible offensive line. I think it's the worst in football, guys. Even their starters, like compared to like a lot of backups. And Micah Parsons is just going to have a field day. And Matt Ryan's a statue. It's just everything just goes against this team. I would lay the points much faster than do anything else here. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if you looked up the definition of a statue with quarterback, it would be Matt Ryan. He is an absolute statue for sure. And can you imagine trying to bet the Colts and having him back there trying to get away from Micah Parsons? There's no way I could bet the Colts in this game. I'm trying to think about what I would like more here. Would I like the Cowboys, the Colts team total under? I haven't bet anything on this game. I just don't trust the Colts offense to score much here. The Cowboys defense is good. I'm impressed with them all year. Now they have Prescott back. I would think they could score some points here. First of all, why is this game a Sunday night game? I mean, that's just insane that the choices that they had. They could have had Bengals and the Chiefs. They could have had the 49ers and the Dolphins. And instead we end up with this. So if you're watching Sunday NFL, you might want to try to tune in on the later afternoon games more than the night game. But maybe if you're doing some Christmas stuff or something like that, make sure you save it for nighttime. I think Indianapolis is in trouble in this game. I could only lay the points if I were betting aside. The problem is, Kiev, what you said to start with, this line has gone up so much. It's hard to bet the line after you know it was a look ahead of -7, and now it's up to 10 or 10.5. I think Colts team total under is probably my favorite bet here.
Yeah, Colts team total under might be a great play here. I'm guessing it's going to be like 14-ish, 13 maybe. I would say that would be 13 to 24.
Yeah,
no, that'd be high. Yeah,
I think you're probably looking at 16 and a half, 17. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's yeah, it would have to be higher than that. So that anything past a 14 is probably a great look for a team total under on the Colts. So wonderful way of approaching it, Kyle. I'm going to definitely think about that one myself here. Let's move on to another awesome game between two teams that have been pretty disgusting this year. The Saints, I mean, they don't put up a lot of points. You got Andy Dalton at quarterback. I mean, I don't know what that says about Jameis Winston, but they're dogs to the Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Bucks are -3.5. The total of this game very low, 40.5. So I'll get started in this one. I bet the Saints at 6, so it's gone. I would have possibly played them at 4, but 3.5 is a lean. You have a low total when you have two teams that are kind of underachievers. Yet, here's a couple things I liked about what happened to the Saints. They're getting healthier. They're getting a lot of their defensive line back. As you know, now they got 2 of their receivers. I know there's going to be no more Michael Thomas this year, but Olave's been really balling out lately and been a better player than I really expected. I kind of didn't know. I almost kind of thought he'd just fit in the mix, but he's their best receiver, and Landry's there as well. Coaching wise, I have to give it to the Saints here. I think there's just been a massive decrease, to the Buccaneers here. With Bowles, I just don't understand what's going on. The play calls, Tom Brady seems frustrating. Tom Brady had a lot of personal problems, of course, and he got through some of it. They still have some talent there, but they also lost some key guys like Shaq Barrett, their pass rusher, a couple guys on the interior line. Now Tristan Wirfs is out, Kyle. They have like 3 or 4 linemen out here on their offensive line, and that's where the Saints have – I guess a good position squad is their defensive line. I think that could give Brady a lot of problems here. I think the points might still be too much. I don't want to give out 3.5 when I already gave it out at 4, 4.5, 6. But I definitely will lean to the Saints here on this game and see what you have to think about it. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I mean, everybody keeps thinking that Tampa Bay is going to turn it around and they're going to be so much better, right? They were favored by 3.5 in Cleveland, and then they can't even win that game. I don't want to bet the Saints, but that would have to be my lean. I think it's a tough one to bet. This is a Tampa Bay team that I'm not laying points with. I don't trust them. I want to see it before I bet it. At the same time, New Orleans, I mean, they're coming off a really bad performance against the 49ers. Maybe that's a good buy low spot, but I never know what you're going to – what are you going to get from Andy Dalton here? I mean, that's my concern too. I mean, you guys know I've watched that many times with the Bengals, primetime Dalton is scary stuff. So I think I lean to the under in this game. I just hope Dalton doesn't throw 2 pick sixes or something like that. But at the same time, like I said, there's no way I can lay points with Tampa Bay. So I just a slight lean to the Saints, but I definitely won't bet this game.
Real quick before Shawn pops in, I will say that was a little misleading too. They had 2 red zone crap outs. One was a turnover and one was just an Andy Dalton special against the Niners. They score once there, they cover. They score twice, they win the game there. So it's almost like they got a lot of yards that game. They just couldn't do it. So that's what makes me like the spot a little bit more for the Saints. Shawn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned the defensive line getting healthy for Saints, and I think that's a big piece of this. Their run defense, which has historically been pretty good, has been really bad the last few weeks. And their running offense, obviously, last week, Andy Dalton led them with 21 yards against the 49ers, so that's not going to get it done. The Bucs defense has been susceptible to the run, though, so if they can get that back on track, Dante Foreman in the game against Carolina, they were able to control the clock, control the game flow. And I think there's going to be a similar game plan for the Saints. And the Saints historically have had Brady's number, right? Since he's gone to Tampa Bay. And in week 2, he only had 190 passing yards, 1 touchdown. If that happens again, I don't think they come away with the 20-10 victory this time around. I think New Orleans finds a way to get it done. But if I had a lean here, it's going to be towards the under, even at that low total of 40.5. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. And I don't think either one of these offenses has shown enough that they're going to run up and down the field on each other.
No, fair enough. The under is probably a really good look too. The Saints are just not putting up a lot of points, but yet the red zone defense has kind of been showing up there. So we'll stick with that. That brings us to our next segment, which is our most likely dog to win outright, Kyle. I'm gonna give Shawn the floor here first, though. Shawn, what sucks for me is I had one, but the spread moved down to 3, so now I got to think of another one. So it was Fresno State, by the way, but it moved down to 3. So, Shawn, what do you got?
Well, I wasn't sure if this was pro, college, or whatever, so I went to college, and I'm throwing a dart here, and I'm hoping Grayson McCall ends up playing for Coastal Carolina. It's not looking good at this point, but they laid an egg last week against James Madison, got absolutely blown out 47-7, and they're not that bad of a team. They didn't show up last week. Troy's defense has been very solid, but they've been susceptible as well to a couple different attacks. Last week against Arkansas State, they only gave up 19 points, but that's not a great offense. And they were right there with them until the fourth quarter. I think they put up something like 34 unanswered in the fourth quarter. Coastal Carolina is a lot better than Arkansas State is. So I'm going to take the shot here with 8.5, hope McCall plays. And even if he doesn't, I think they still got a shot to beat Troy because I don't think Troy's going to score a ton in this game.
Oh, fair enough. I like it. Everybody's on Troy. That thing went from 4.5 to 11. Now it's kind of back down to 8.5. A lot of questions on if McCall's going to play, but hey, this just going to be that Chadwell. Let's do it, guys. I know there's all these rumors that he's going to leave and go to South Florida, but it doesn't. We can't predict motivation, and this could be one of those spots where last week they just mailed it into James Madison, knowing that they're going to play Troy anyway. So, not a bad look here. Plus 255. Kyle, what is yours?
Well, I was thinking about taking Fresno to Kiev, but then it moved back down to 3. So both of us had the same thought. So if you're paying attention here, guys, then definitely both of us looking toward Fresno. But I'm going to take the Titans here in the NFL this week. I think the Titans lose to the Bengals last week. The Eagles have not been dominating here lately. I think the Titans have been a good team in a road spot. I like Vrabel a lot. He's a very good coach. Plus 185, plus 190 on the Titans. That's who I'm going to go with because a couple of mine that were sitting right at 3 were the ones that I was considering. But I do like the Titans. I don't think the Eagles are far better than them. And I think the Titans could have some success running against the Eagles this week.
All right. The Titans, they do have a path to victory. The Eagles are one of the worst rushing defenses, 31st in opponent rush EPA, Kyle. So I like where you're going there. I don't think the spread's going to factor in. I think the Titans win outright or the Eagles possibly blow them out due to the Titans secondary. But it's going to be an interesting game to watch. I know there's a lot of sharp money on the Titans. So the sharp money definitely agrees with what you're saying, being that this thing moved down from 6 all the way to 4.5 in a lot of books, Kyle. I'm going to have to go with UCF here. And, this is one of those games that I already saw it. And I feel that Tulane can't stop the run. They're one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. Everyone wants Tulane to win because they're hurt, Fritz and doing a great job and being unpredictable, and nobody likes UCF. They're the team that's been there for a long time and their coach and all. But it's just the situation where UCF now coming in a dog again is really going to motivate them. I like the fact I think their quarterback is going to play in Plumlee, and I think that he's good enough to play. I mean, I think he ran over 100 yards last game, didn't he, Kyle? It was a pretty good amount, so I don't see what's going to stop them. Tulane struggles against the run, and they struggle against running quarterbacks. Plus 3.5, I'll take it at plus 155. Why not? I think it's a good one to grab.
Yeah, I like that one too. It was 176 he ran for, and the team was over 300, so I like that as well.
All right. Well, good stuff, guys. Shawn, where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and plays?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff at theoddsbreakers.com, on Twitter at the Great Knoche. Have a lot of fun. We got a lot of college basketball left once football season winds down, and I'm already prepping for a lot of baseball stuff. So first fantasy baseball draft and first future stuff going on with baseball already next week. So check it out if you want to get on board, and love to have you.
You are a baseball guru with your DFS every week. You love it. So I'm not thinking about baseball at all. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm thinking about college basketball. We're going to talk more college basketball. I'll have you back on. Kyle, where could our listeners get your great information?
I was gonna say, Shawn, don't make me nervous. Don't get talking about baseball yet. I gotta focus on what's going on here now. But that's cool. You can find me at huntersportspicks.com. I have a free picks newsletter over there as well, at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. I'm on a lot of different sites. You can also get me on the Odds Breakers. So lots of stuff going on. Busy time of the year. There'll be plenty of plays coming up. So you can check me out there at any of those places.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for viewing this show. If you have any questions for us, you can tweet us at Kyle Hunter Picks, at OB Kiev, at the Great Knoche. Enjoy the weekend. Go get all your games and go get some winners.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.